So first things first, I want to start with the story about a farmer. So there's this farmer, and one day as he's retiring for the night, he tells his wife, "Tomorrow I'm going to plow the field." So next morning he gets up and he goes to the tractor. He sees that it needs lubrication, so he goes to get the oil. Now as he goes to get the oil, he sees that the chickens need feeding, that they haven't been fed. So he goes to get some feed for the chicken. And when he comes to that barn where the chicken feed is kept, he sees some snacks lying around, some potatoes, and he realized, oh, the potatoes need sprouting. So he makes his way to the vegetable pit. Now, as he is making his way to the vegetable pit, he finds a pile of wood, and he suddenly remembers, oh, the fireplace in my house needs some wood, but this wood is not chopped, so this needs chopping. So he goes to get the axe, which was in the chicken coop. So now as he is going to get the axe, along the way he meets his wife who was feeding the pigs. And now by this time, more than half the day had gone by. And so his wife is surprised to see him. He said, "Have you finished plowing the field already?" And the farmer is, "Finished? I haven't got the time to get started." Now, if this realization hits us soon enough, we can make amends, we can make corrections. But often as our life story goes, people realize this towards the end of their life. Oh, I could have done this. I wanted to do this. I'm not happy in life. If only I had done this, I would have been more happy, and so on. In the autobiography, I won't go into the story that Yoganandaji writes about in the autobiography. But, the prelude to the story is also very interesting. His brother Ananda is fed up with Yogananda's frequent flights to the Himalayas in search of God. And one day he corners him, and he tells him that you're going to be disinherited from the family. He thought his pursuit for God was such a useless pursuit and that he was wasting his time. And Master Yoganandaji, I call Yoganandaji Master because he's my guru. So Yoganandaji retorts, "I seek inheritance from my heavenly Father." And Ananta, not to be put down easily, says, "Make money first. Life may be too long." And Yogananda, nothing less, if not more, he says, "Money is his slave. Life may be too short." And as we see, friends, we lay great plans for the future. We see our past, we want to make amends for the past, and then we start planning for the future. Oh, I will do that, I will do this. I have seen sometimes in my parents' generation, they would often sacrifice their own interests for the sake of family, for the sake of society. They've pleased everybody, and their own desires, they would wait to see it fulfilled through their children. Now, in today's generation, I see that some of them fortunately realize that, I don't want to finish this life without having done what I came to do. So some of them retire early, saying, I'll make some money, and by 40 or by 50, I want to retire and then fulfill my heart's calling, which is still good, but it still remains in the future. There was a disciple of Master whom Master often kept exhorting, you should attend more satsangs, you should come more often. And the man would repeatedly keep telling Master, oh Master, I'm too busy, I have too many appointments to keep. And one day Master told him, but what if God cancels all your appointments today? The fact being, friends, that today is all we are given. The now is what we have. As Yukteswarji said, we make the right effort now, everything in future improves. Some of us know the story of the professor, the philosophy professor in class, and the jar and the items in the jar, but it bears repeating, so I'll say it again today. So the professor enters the class and he wants to make a point to the class. So he brings this jar and he brings a set of items with him. He opens the jar and opens a pile with huge, massive stones in it, and he puts those stones into the jar. He fills the jar and he looks at the students and asks them, do you think the jar is full? And they said, yes, nothing more can go into the jar. Then he opens a little box of tiny pebbles and he pours the pebbles into the jar, and the pebbles find their way around the big stones in the jar. And again looks at the students and he asks them, do you think this is full now? They said yes. Then he opens a bowl of sand and he pours that sand into the jar. And the sand makes its way again in the places between the rocks and the pebbles. And he again looks at the students, full? And they said, yes, it is full to the brim. Then he takes a glass of water and he pours the water, filling the jar completely. And he says, now what? Can it take any more? What is the lesson? What does this illustrate to you? Any thoughts from anyone here? That's exactly what one student said. They said, we thought the jar is full, but you could put more and more and more. So no matter how busy we are in life, we can fit more things into it if we can make time for it. And he said, no. What else? Another student said, the water was the last thing in. So there's always time for a drink. He said, no, the point is, get the big stones in first, because if you don't get them in first, they're not going to get in. Once you put the big stones in, you can fill in whatever else will take its place. It's a beautiful story that shows us the importance of first things first. Like we saw in the story in the autobiography, Ananda telling his brother, make money first. And it is our reality too. If we look at what is it that we worship, what is it that we pay more attention to, it is jobs, families, money. We think these are our securities. A man once asked Master, what are the assets of this organization? And Master said, none, answering to the level from which he was asking the question to Master. And then Master said, only God. Before we do anything in any role that we play in life, it's important to have the right understanding. If you want to grow an apple orchard, you need to know what type of seed goes in. You need to know what climatic conditions will favor the orchard. You need to know how to tend and nurture the orchard. Then you're ready. Then you will have a good orchard. But if we don't have that understanding, probably it will never start. So likewise, friends, before we start anything, we need to remind ourselves of a few things. Who am I? Why am I here? Why am I doing what I am doing? Without the right understanding, we will not know what is first, what comes later, what comes last. In the Bible, they say, the wise man builds his house upon a rock, and the foolish man builds his house upon the sand. So if we think life is about whatever our senses are telling us, about what we see, hear, feel, touch, and there's nothing more to it, that is where we seek our solutions outwardly. We have completely then negated our true reality in spirit. When we base our life on the evidence of senses, it is like building that house upon the shifting sands. When the storms come, when the waves rise, we will experience sorrow and suffering. But if we build it upon the rock of understanding, the understanding that I am spirit, then that house stands firm against the storms, stands firm when the waves rise. So what is our purpose in being here? If our nature, if our true reality is spirit, the fruits of all that we do also need to be that of spirit, of finding peace, joy, not outwardly in fleeting things, but of that which is within us. I want to share this beautiful story of a Greek man. This was during the times of the Second World War. And the German troops had come into Crete. I hope I'm pronouncing that place properly. And the local villagers put up some resistance, but they were very brutally massacred. And this boy was about 6 years old when his entire village was lined up and wiped out. And he was imprisoned in a concentration camp. And after he was released, he felt the strong hatred and dislike that had seeped into the consciousness of people. And as a way of healing, he built an institute of peace and understanding, which is still there. And one day he was giving a talk to a group of people, and they asked him, "What is the meaning of life?" And he relates a story. He said during those days, he was just walking by a road, and he found a motorcycle wreck. It belonged to the German soldiers. And the mirror of the motorcycle had splintered, and it was in pieces. He picked up a piece. He was a young boy at that time. He picked up the biggest piece. He tried to put the pieces together. It wouldn't come together. So he picked up the biggest piece, and rubbing it on the stone, he smoothed out the edges and got a nice little round mirror for himself. And as a boy, he would play. He would use that mirror to shine light into dark places where he wanted light. And he said, in time, this became a metaphor for my own life. That he said, I realized that I am like that fragment of a mirror whose shape and design I do not know. But with whatever I have, I can shine light into the dark places of this world. I can shine light into the dark corners of men's heart. This is what my life is about, and this is the meaning of my life. And what a beautiful way to, he got the truth. Now, we, knowing yoga, the teachings of yoga, the study of scriptures, know the design and the make of the mirrors that we come from too. But for him to realize that we are all channels of the light, he arrived at that truth, that there is no other purpose. It's not about making money. It's not about creating a nice little nest for ourselves. And all of that is enjoyable and must be done, because Yogananda ji himself said, this world is for your education and entertainment. That is not taken away from us. But he said, yet very few are educated, very few are entertained. And that's because we simply don't know how to put first things first. Isn't it so? So for us to understand, friends, that if we are children of God, our purpose in life is in whatever we do to be channels for that light. If we are not being channels for that light, we will not find fulfillment. We may find temporary, fleeting moments of happiness, but that happiness quickly wanes. We again become restless because the spirit, the tree of spirit, has not been watered by meditation, by spiritual practices, by satsangs. Those are those big stones we need to get into the jar first. And I want to close with the story of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Many of you will know him. So in 2001, a journalist was going to interview Desmond Tutu, and he was very excited about it. Desmond Tutu by that time was suffering from prostate cancer, and who knows, it could be his last interview. And he was, in trepidation, what is he going to say about his life's journey? And in the interview, Desmond Tutu, he says, if this were to be my last interview, and he thought, he would talk about politics and how the government of his country had improved. And of course, Tutu himself had a big role, influential role to play in that. And he expected him to speak about that. And during the interview, Desmond Tutu says, if this were to be my last interview, let's not talk about politics. Let's talk about prayer and adoration. Let's talk about love and forgiveness. Let's talk about faith and hope. That when we are faced with challenges, we are channels for the light to improve, but often we are put on our back foot, and we want to understand that to overcome anything on the physical plane, we have to first overcome it in spirit, through right understanding, through right attitudes, and then things will naturally change on the physical plane. If we are not doing this in spirit first through changes in our heart and our right attitudes, temporarily you may be able to put a band-aid on the situation and you will experience a sense of peace, but very quickly it will be replaced by restlessness. And the problem will resurface. But when we overcome in attitudes of spirit, we find peace and contentment that is beyond the reach of this world. As Christ said, a peace that passeth all understanding or evidence that is given through the senses. So whatever role we play in life, friends, as a homemaker, teacher, artist, doctor, scientist, whatever role we play, let's remember to be channels for that light. When we have our conversations with life, not to crib about what didn't come to you or how somebody mistreated us and so on, but let's talk about the blessings of the Guru. Let's talk about love and forgiveness. Let's talk about faith. Let's talk about service. Be serviceful. Be a lover of God who dwells in everyone's hearts. And first things first, ye are God's. All else, as Christ said, will be added unto us. I'll invite Zenia too.
So the topic today is, how is humor so important in our lives? How does it help us spiritually? So as we all know that laughter is one of the Laughter is one of the most important joys of life. And Adi Sankacharya told us that God is Sat Chit Ananda. And Paramahansa Yogananda explained it is ever existing, ever conscious, ever new joy. That joy lies within each one of us. And it is through laughter and humor that we can bring out that joy which is awaiting to be awakened from within us. Yogananda ji, when he was young, he was always full of laughter. He visited saints, and they were also always full of laughter. And they enjoyed his laughter because they knew it came from God. So once when he was visiting Baduri Mahashaya, and Baduri Mahashaya appreciated his laughter and understood from where he came, but his disciples didn't like it. They were getting a little disturbed. So Baduri Mahashaya told him, if you don't mind, could you be a little more serious? So to this Yogananda, she said, I understand where you come from, sir, but my laughter comes from God, and I am happy because I am in your presence. So to that, Badri Mahashaya realized that laughter is important and explained to his disciples. Whenever somebody was asked about Paramahansa Yogananda ji, they always remembered him for his love and his great sense of humor. When he always tried to teach important spiritual aspects through laughter, he always included in his stories funny jokes and stories for the basic reason that people were more receptive and understood and remembered things because of that. So humor was always in Yoganandaji's life. Now, how did he explain a lot of spirituality and good principles? One example is about Mr. and Mrs. Lewis. They go to San Francisco with Yoganandaji, and they have traveled the whole day, and they are very, very tired. And Mrs. Lewis makes it very clear, I want to rest. So, and they was resting in a hotel which were with adjoining rooms, and there was a door connecting the two of them. So, as they are going to sleep, Yoganandaji had kept the door open. As they're going to sleep, Yoganandaji talks from the other room, sab gum. And Mrs. Lewis gets quite irritated. She wants to sleep, and she says, he's not going to make me get up. And Mr. Lewis is smiling away. He knows what's happening. And then again, after some time, he says, sab gum duff. And then Mrs. Lewis turns to the wall for help, and she is trying to go to sleep and making a resolution, I won't get up at all. But again, Master, super sab gum duff. By the way, sab gum was a Chinese dish that they ate that morning. And Master was just enjoying the sound of it. And then after some time, again, super submarine sab gum duff. And with that, they both got up from the bed and they roared with laughter. And they joined Master in the adjoining room. And they shared a lot of humor amongst themselves. They shared a lot of spirituality, a lot of important things. And it was very important for that because Mr. Lewis and Yogananda were very busy. They didn't get that chance to be with each other. Similarly, what did Yoganandaji try to teach us by this? He tried to teach us that each day, sleep is not important. We need to sit with Master. We need to talk to him. We need to meditate with him, connect with him, tell him, talk to him. So that is very, very important. Another beautiful example is about Mrs. Vera Brown. She was a senior teacher, and she was supposed to train all the newcomers. And what happens that day is she's talking to Yoganandaji, and Yoganandaji says, you work too hard. You should rest. You may spoil your health. And she says, yes, Master. And she mentally thinks that I will cut down my activities. But after a few days, Master comes and gives her more work. So she's saying, what's happening? Okay, Master knows what he's doing. Then again, after a few days, he meets and very sternly he says, you should work less. You have worked enough for this incarnation and incarnations to come. So she says, okay, Master. And again, after a few days, he gives her more work. So she's wondering what's happening. And then this continues for many days. And she realizes that Master's trying to teach her something, but she just couldn't put her finger on it. Then suddenly it struck her. And she says, Master, so is it okay if we remove the word work and substitute for service? The Master roared with laughter. And he says, that's been a nice play with you. And he said, you have always in your life thought of work, work, work. The very thought of work has made you tired. So if we consider work as divine service, we will be able to do 2 times and 3 times the amount of work and never get tired. Yogananda ji, at this, he always said, never laugh at anybody or joke about somebody. Laugh with God. Laugh at your shortcomings. And life is full of ups and downs. So to enjoy that ups and downs with your friends and see the fun in it is very, very important. Another very important example that how God's humor works in our lives, we don't understand it, is that once there was a couple who went to Los Angeles and they were going to the ashram. And they parked their car on a very crowded road. And as they're walking towards the ashram of Yogananda Ji Master, they hear a big bang. And they notice that it was their car that got banged. And they were first very happy that it was not their car. They were not in the car first. But afterwards they felt, oh my God, now we've got to repair this and we don't have the money. And they depended on their car for their work. So how would they go to work? And a lot of things were coming. They thought Master is gone on a vacation. And then suddenly the insurance company people come and they say, okay, we will repair your car, but only the part which has got spoiled or got damaged just now, because their car had been damaged several times before and different parts had fallen off and but they were just managing. So it was that situation. And then they also said, we will give you a car on rent. We will not take the rent from you, but we'll give you a car, because to rent a car in America was very, very difficult for them to afford that time. So they were grateful to the Master. Then a week or 2 passes by and they go to the body shop. They are going to the body shop to pick up the car. And a call comes from the body shop. Sir, I'm very sorry, but your car has been hit in the body shop again. So they want to know what's going to happen. They said, but sir, to compensate for that, we'll repair that part and your entire car. So you see, friends, with God in His sweet humor is really helping us. We can't see it at that time, but we can understand it in the long run when we see the bigger picture. And we can understand it much clearer. So whenever you feel sad, you can share it with your friends, bring the joy in it, you can find more clarity, your energy gets risen up, you feel happy, you can find a way through it. So it's very, very important. I would like to end with a poem. If you could all close your eyes and feel this prayer of Master. O silent laughter, smile through my soul. Let my soul smile through my heart, and let my heart smile through my eyes. O Prince of Smiles, make me a smile millionaire, that I may scatter thy rich smiles in sad hearts freely everywhere. So friends, like all of Krishna's men, soldiers look like Krishna, same way like Master. We all should be smile millionaires and spreading that joy and love of Master. Thank you.